So far, we have seen that Siya is taken to the principal's office, where she meets Audiobook, who asks her for help. Without wasting a second, Siya flatly refuses him. After that, she looks at the principal and says, "I just joined this university yesterday. Even after scoring top marks in all the exams and everything that has happened, I have no acquaintance, no friendship, and no enmity here. Then how is it possible that so much has happened just the day after I arrived here, principal sir?" And another thing, pointing at that teacher. How does she know about my background? How does she have so much personal information about me? As far as I remember, when I was taking admission here, it was clearly stated that none of my personal information would be shared with anyone. It would be limited to you only. Then, how did this lady get my information? What answer do you have for that? After saying this much, Siya pulls a chair from the side and sits down. She crosses one leg over the other and starts glaring at everyone present with a dangerous look. Hearing her questions, the principal felt the pressure mounting. Siya's questions had started racing through his mind because what Siya said was absolutely true, and he had also taken full care of this matter. So, how did this teacher know that Siya came here from an orphanage? The principal looks at the teacher, who was already shocked and trembling with fear before Siya's questions. Seeing her condition, the principal understood that something was definitely wrong. Therefore, he looks at the teacher with great anger and says, "Teacher Verma, what answer do you have for all this? Because as Mishra said, it is absolutely true that we did not share any of her information with any staff. So, how did you find out about this?" Hearing the principal's question, the teacher starts stammering, I. The principal's temper was rising, because on one hand, due to one of their staff members, the matter had escalated to their jobs and the entire university, because he knew very well what Manav Bajaj was capable of. One mistake, and the entire university could turn into a wreck. The principal then looks at the four girls and says, "And how do you know about this? Siya just joined here yesterday. As far as I know, you haven't even spoken to her, because your class and her class are different. Then, how do all of you know about this?" Now, the four girls who had been standing there like helpless victims were so scared that they started sweating even in a fully air-conditioned room. They were looking around trying to say something, but not a single sound was coming out of their mouths. Meanwhile, Atik, who was standing at a distance, felt a bit sad about Siya's harsh behavior, but he had gotten used to it by now. Because somewhere, this is called karma. What we do happens to us in the same way. That is exactly what was happening here. Just as they used to treat Siya before, now Siya was treating them in exactly the same way. But now he was beginning to understand how it feels when someone close behaves like this, how it feels to be denied as one of their own, how it feels when they refuse to acknowledge you in front of four people, how it feels when someone acts like a stranger despite being close. He could feel all these things very well. At the same time, he had not taken his attention away from everything happening there. He even held on to the line in his mind when one of the girls mentioned Ragini's name. And after that, the questions raised by Siya and what the principal said made it clear that someone was doing this intentionally. But who? Just... Then the door of the principal's office opens and a girl enters, dressed in black from head to toe. With a mask on her face and something on her head, it was difficult to tell whether she was a boy or a girl. She then walks in and hands the laptop she was holding to Siya, standing aside with great respect. Seeing the laptop, Siya looks at the information displayed on it, and a dangerous smile appears on her face. After that, she looks at the principal, then at the 4 girls, and then at the teacher. Then she looks at the principal and says, "Principal, sir, if someone wants to tarnish a student's reputation in your university, causing that student to have mental problems and insulted by a teacher without any fault, then what punishment is there for all this here?" Hearing this, the teacher panics and says defensively, "What are you saying? When did I do anything wrong to you or insult you? Don't say anything. When did I do anything wrong to anyone? The whole university knows what kind of person I am." Then the students, who had been standing there nervously, felt their hearts drop at the mention of punishment, except for one girl, who was probably the mayor's daughter. The girls say, "How can you even say that? We have no fault in this. We just talked about what we saw and read, and we just asked you about that. What is wrong with that? We just asked you about what we saw. So how can you punish us? We should not be punished for this." All the girls were talking like this. Meanwhile, hearing their words and Sia's question, the principal's mind was already spinning. Therefore, he looks at Siya. He was beginning to understand a bit, so he says, "If, miss, what you said is true, then we can rusticate those students and send the teacher for trial. That is the punishment in our university." Audhic, who had been standing quietly for so long, looks at the principal and says, "Principal, what are you saying? After everything that has happened, such a small punishment is not enough. After all they thought of doing wrong to a member of the Rao family, we will not let this go so easily. I want you to find out who is behind this matter as soon as possible and punish them. If that doesn't happen, then you understand what I can do?" Hearing this, the principal felt as if he was being given 2 options: either cut his throat with a knife or drink poison, but both would lead to the same result: death. Hearing all this, he felt like throwing all these students and the teacher off a high cliff right then and there. In his 25-year career, he had never faced such a situation. Siya was looking at Audhic, but there were no emotions in her eyes, nor on her face. She was just looking at him. When their eyes met, Audhic's eyes conveyed a feeling of care and protection for her, but Siya completely ignored him and handed the laptop directly to the principal and said, "I want the results right now." Saying this, she sat down and started rubbing her forehead with one hand. Meanwhile, as the principal read the details on the laptop, his face turned pale. After reading all the information, he angrily picked up a paperweight from the table and threw it at the teacher. But the paperweight missed the teacher and hit a large painting on the wall, shattering the glass all over the cabin. With such an action, everyone except Siya had left together, and now they were feeling a sense of danger. Everyone around was sweating profusely. What could be on that laptop that made the principal take such action? Will Siya melt seeing Adik's feelings? Or will she have to endure the same things she faced before?